Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. So recently I got this email from Jessica Mitchell, subject line Visions and Visitations, and I already made this video based on her email called The Vision of the First Jewish Convert. At the time that I'm making this is my most recent video. And she pointed me to this article in the Ensign. It's from the August 1975 Ensign. The name of the article is He Lives, for We Saw Him. And it's just account after account after account of visions and visitations. And I'm just kind of combing through this. And now I'm on the next one. And okay, we're looking at this blue one right here. Okay. I've said this before. I think I said it in that last video. Whenever you come across stuff like this in church publications, you should try and find the original source, because usually there's a lot more information. So this is what it says in this article. In the room at the time, so this is talking about Doctrine and Covenants 76, where Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon had a vision of the 3 degrees of glory and saw other things. Okay. So during this, it says, in the room at the time were about a dozen other men, among whom was Philo Dibble, who testified, quote, I saw the glory and felt the power, but did not see the vision, end quote. And then it has the source, Juvenile Instructor, volume 27, page 303. But there's a little bit more to that story, as it turns out. And there's additional information for another visitation that I already have recorded on my spreadsheet. So this was a double whammy, and this is really good because there's stuff here that I never heard before. Okay, so if you're new to the channel, what am I talking about? I have this spreadsheet. It's called Quotes, Visions, and Visitations, and it's a timeline of visions, visitations, dreams, near-death experiences, and end-of-life experiences of like heavenly messengers, essentially. And these are all like more kind of like official accounts that involve a general authority or was recorded by a general authority of the church or general officer or whoever, apostle, prophet. Okay, so I have 2 new additions to this one right here. We're looking at the years 1831 and 1832. And we've already covered these accounts, but we just have more information looking at this. Okay, so this is the May 15th, 1892 Juvenile Instructor, number 10. And the name of the article is Recollections of the Prophet Joseph Smith, which, from what I can tell, that's actually kind of like it's like a series that shows up in multiple issues of the Juvenile Instructor, and maybe even in the Millennial Star. I'm not sure. I think I've seen it there too. But these are full of like good information whenever you come across these. Okay, so we're going down to this section that says Elder Philo Dibble. Now, who is that? Here's a picture of him. This is on MormonWiki.com. And then if you go to the Joseph Smith papers, they have an entry for him, his little biography here. And at the time that he told this, or that it was recorded in the Juvenile Instructor, he was a 70. Okay. So he was in one of the quorums of the 70. Okay. So here we go. Elder Philo Dibble relates the following concerning the prophet Joseph Smith. Okay. So first he tells of this one. Let's go back here. He tells the story from June 4th, 1831. This was in Kirtland, Ohio. And the occasion was, this was the first time that anybody was being, aside from Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery, this is the first time that anyone was being ordained to the office of high priest. And what we've seen on this spreadsheet and this timeline is that anytime that something like major like that happens in the church, like something major is being restored, it's like a really key milestone, Satan typically shows up. And so Joseph Smith had made a prophecy saying that the man of sin was going to be revealed during this meeting that they were having. And yeah, so that's what's going on. So let's go ahead and go back to here. I saw Joseph Smith the prophet when he first came to Kirtland and was with him in the first conference held in that place, which was in a small schoolhouse. When he arose in our midst, he said that before the conference closed, there were those present who should see the heavens open and bear record of the coming of the Son of Man, and that the man of sin should be revealed. Let me pause here really quick. A lot of times people in our church will take the lead of evangelicals and their interpretation of the Bible, and they don't understand the concept. The evangelicals and other Christians don't understand the concept of the great apostasy. So when they see mysterious terms like the man of sin, they think, oh, what is this? It doesn't have reference to us and the great apostasy and apostate Christianity. They think, oh, there's going to be this Antichrist and he has to be revealed. And no, there's not going to be a one-person Antichrist. I'm not going to go over that here. This is just part of that. Go watch my playlist called Antichrist. I go through it. I stick to our own doctrine. I don't go after, evangelical interpretations of things. But Joseph Smith said that the man of sin should be revealed. Okay. While he talked, he laid his hand upon the head of Lyman White. He then laid his left hand upon the head of Harvey Whitlock. Lyman White stepped into the middle of the room and bore record of the coming of the Son of Man. Then Harvey Whitlock stepped into the middle of the room with his arms crossed, bound by the power of Satan, and his mouth twisted unshapely. And that's like a new detail. I don't think that we saw that in the other accounts. So his mouth twisted unshapely. Hiram Smith arose and declared that there was an evil spirit in the room. Joseph said, "Don't be too hasty," and Hiram sat down. Shortly, Hiram rose the second time, saying, "I know my duty and I will do it." And stepping to Harvey, commanded the evil spirits to leave him, but the evil spirits did not obey. Joseph then approached Harvey and asked him if he believed in God. And it seems like this is part of the key as to what it took to have the evil spirits go away. Asked him if he believed in God. Then we saw a change in Harvey. He also bore record of the opening of the heavens and of the coming of the Son of Man, precisely as Lyman White had done. Next, a man by the name of Harvey Green was thrown upon his back on the floor by an unseen power. Some of the brethren wanted to administer to him by laying on of hands, but Joseph forbade it. Harvey looked to me with a man in a fit. Looked to me like a man in a fit. He groaned and frothed at the mouth. Finally, he got upon his knees and came out of it. Next thing, I saw a man... Okay, now this gets a little bit wild. I don't remember this in the other accounts either. Next thing, I saw a man came flying through the window from outside. He was straight as a man's arm as he sailed into the room over 2 rows of seats filled with men and fell on the floor between the seats and was pulled out by the brethren. Okay, so he essentially did like a Superman through the window and then over 2 rows of people and seats. That is pretty wild. Okay. He was soon apparently calm and natural. His name was Lehman Copley. He weighed over 200 pounds. So yeah, that is quite the feat to do that. This I saw with my own eyes, and I know it is all true and bear testimony to it. I was with Joseph the next morning after he was tarred and feathered by a mob. So this was a rough 24 to 48 hours in the town of Hiram. After he had washed and dressed in clean clothes, I heard him say to Sidney Rigdon, who was also tarred and feathered, "Now, Sidney, we are ready to go on that mission," having reference to a command of God to go to Jackson County, Missouri, in which they had deferred to comply with until they should have accomplished some work which they had planned but never did accomplish. So Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon, okay, so they conferred the office of high priest for the first time, aside from Joseph Smith himself, and I think Oliver Cowdery, the first time that comes back in about 2,000 years. And then there's this wild, crazy attack from evil spirits, like throwing people through windows and on the ground. And then Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon get tarred and feathered. And then Joseph Smith says, now, Sidney, we are ready to go on that mission. So I guess the next time you have any hesitancy about accepting a calling in your ward or stake, maybe think about this. You may not have it as bad as Joseph Smith did. Okay, so, but this goes to show you just how serious the adversary is in trying to stop the kingdom. And we see this kind of adversity in different places, sometimes in your personal life when you're like getting ready to go on a mission, you're getting ready to go to the temple. Maybe you're getting ready to get married or something like that, something that would help you progress or that would spread the gospel. And then we see it whenever, well, I'm not going to say whenever, but there's plenty of stories when temples are announced and then you have opposition from the local community. So it happens and it's very real. It's a very real force. We need to be living the right way. We need to go to the temple because that gives you additional protection. And we need to pray for help against temptation and things like that. It's real. Okay, so now after this, he talks about the vision from Doctrine and Covenants 76. But before we continue on with that, let me just do a quick review of one of these accounts that I have on the spreadsheet of what we just read. Just to give you a little bit more of an idea of what was going on. Okay, the 4th of June came, and we all met in a little string of buildings under the hill near Isaac Morley's in Kirtland, Genoa County, Ohio. Then we all went to a schoolhouse on the hill about 1/4 of a mile ascending nearly all the way. The building was built of logs. It was filled with slab benches. Here the elders were seated, and the meeting was opened as usual. Joseph Smith began to speak. He said that the kingdom of Christ that he had spoke of, that was like a grain of mustard seed, was now before him, and some should see it put forth its branches, just as the Savior had said. Some of you shall live to see it come with great glory. Some of you must die for the testimony of this work. And he looked at Lyman White and said to him, you shall see the Lord and meet him near the corner of the house, and laid his hands upon him and blessed him with the visions of heaven. Joseph Smith then stepped out on the floor and said, I now see God in Jesus Christ at his right hand. Let them kill me. I should not feel death as I am now. We read some commentary on this. I think it was from an Ensign article. It may have been somewhere else, but the opinion of the author was that he could have been saying, oh my gosh, with all this persecution and the weight of the kingdom on my shoulders, can I just be done now? Can I just come to you right now? So, and I think that's a pretty good opinion of what he's probably saying here. Okay, continuing. Joseph put his hands on Harvey Whitlock and ordained him to the high priesthood. He turned as black as Lyman was white. That's a pun because of Lyman White. So he turned black. His fingers were set like claws. He went around the room and showed his hands and tried to speak. His eyes were in the shape of oval O's. And somebody, after I did that video, put in the comments like, oh, that sounds like maybe like a goat's eyes or something like that. I don't know exactly what that means, but I don't know. That's a good guess. Hiram said, Joseph, that is not of God. Joseph said, do not speak against this. I will not believe, said Hiram, unless you inquire of God, and he owns it. Joseph bowed his head, and in a short time got up and commanded Satan to leave Harvey, laying his hands upon his head at the same time. At that very instant, an old man, said to weigh 214 pounds, now this says sitting in the window, did a complete somersault in the house and came his back across a bench and lay helpless. So this sounds like the same. Yeah, the man's name was Lyman Copley. So the other account says that he like flew through the window like Superman. This one says that he was sitting in the window. So I don't know, maybe just somebody remembered it wrong or thought something else was taking place. So it doesn't matter. Just clearly something was going on here. turned a complete somersault in the house and came his back across a bench and lay helpless. Joseph told Lyman to cast Satan out. He did. The man's name was Lyman Copley, formerly a Quaker. Evil spirit left him, and as quick as lightning, Harvey Green fell bound and screamed like a panther. So now another person. Satan was cast out of him, but immediately entered someone else. This continued all day and the greater part of the night. But returning to the meeting, I like this part of despite all that, but returning to the meeting, Joseph said, "Now, if you elders have sinned, it will do you no good to preach if you have not repented. Heman Bassett, you sit still, the devil wants to sift you." Then he ordained Jacob Scott and some others to the high priesthood. He came to Zebedee Coltrane and myself and told us that we had another calling as high as any man in this house. I was glad for that, for I was so scared I would not stir without his liberty for all the world. I knew the things I had seen were not made up. And by the way, the one that's telling this account is Levi Ward Hancock, who later became a president in the presidency of the 70. And then it talks about the next day, like a separate account that he had with some others. And there's a few other accounts, but I'm not going to read all that here. There's a very short account in History of the Church. And then, anyway, so you get the idea. If you want to read those, the link is in the description box of each video. This is best viewed on a desktop or a laptop. Just double click on the cell and then you can scroll down. Alternatively, you can copy this and then paste it onto like a Word document or something like that. Okay, so now let's skip forward to the next year, 1832. This is at the John Johnson farm in Hiram, Ohio. When I was in Kirtland this year, we wanted to go see that because we were there for the eclipse and we toured the Kirtland Temple, but we didn't want to risk, traffic because there were a lot of people there at the Kirtland Temple for the eclipse and to tour the temple. So next time, I'll go there next time. But this was at the John Johnson farm in Hiram, Ohio, which at the time, for a short time, Hiram, Ohio was the headquarters of the church, one of the 7 headquarters the church has had. And this is where we have the vision of the 3 degrees of glory. And I'll tell you, up until this point, I was ignorant of the fact that there was anybody else present. I thought it was just Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon. I didn't know. So you have Philo Dibble and about 12 other men, according to him. Okay, so let's go back to this. The vision, which is recorded in the Book of Doctrine and Covenants, was given at the house of Father Johnson in Hiram, Ohio. And during the time that Joseph and Sidney were in the Spirit and saw the heavens open, there were other men in the room, perhaps 12, among whom I was one during a part of the time. Probably 2/3 of the time, I saw the glory and felt the power. So I'm going to take this literally. I think he's actually saying he saw something. At the very least, he saw glory, whatever that means. Maybe just light or something. And then he differentiates seeing glory from feeling the power. But then he says, but did not see the vision. Okay, so this is the small little part that was put in this Ensign article. But let's read some more. Maybe you knew about this, maybe you didn't. Let me know if this is old news to you. I've never heard this in my life. The events in conversation while they were seeing what is written, and many things were seen and related that are not written. That's fascinating. I wish I could know, because they're having an incredible vision of the degrees of glory. Let's go to this really quick. So, excuse me, let me just read this chapter heading. The Lord is God. The mysteries of the kingdom will be revealed to all the faithful. All will come forth in the resurrection of the just or the unjust. The inhabitants of many worlds are begotten sons and daughters unto God through the atonement of Jesus Christ. So maybe they were seeing some of these other worlds aside from earth. An angel of God fell and became the devil. Sons of perdition suffer eternal damnation. All others gain some degree of salvation. The glory and reward of exalted beings in the celestial kingdom is described. Those who will inherit the terrestrial kingdom are described. The status of those in the celestial, terrestrial, and celestial glories is explained. The faithful may see and understand the mysteries of God's kingdom by the power of the Holy Spirit. So I feel like we already kind of have a lot in just what we have. This section has 119 verses. So I guess not all of it made it into the Doctrine and Covenants, and it may not even be written at all, according to this. So the events in conversation while they were seeing what is written, and many things were seen and related that are not written, I will relate as minutely as is necessary. Joseph would, at intervals, say, "What do I see?" as one might say while looking out the window and beholding what all in the room could not see. Then he would relate what he had seen or what he was looking at. Then Sidney replied, "I see the same." Presently, Sidney would say, "What do I see?" and would repeat what he had seen or was seeing, and Joseph would reply, "I see the same." The manner of conversation was repeated at short intervals to the end of the vision. And during the whole time, not a word was spoken by any other person. Can you imagine like being there? You're just like standing there quiet. You see the glory, perhaps like Elder Dibble, and you feel the power, and just like things are quiet, and you have these two men. "What do you see?" "Yep, I see it too." "What do you see?" "Yep, I see that." That'd be interesting. Not a sound nor motion was made by anyone. But Joseph and Sidney, and it seemed to me that they never moved a joint or limb during the time I was there, which I think was over an hour, and the end of the vision. Joseph sat firmly and calmly all the time in the midst of a magnificent glory. So again, it's like he's like seeing the actual glory, maybe him glowing. But Sidney sat limp and pale, apparently as limber as a rag. Observing which, Joseph remarked smilingly, sorry, "Sidney is not as used to it as I am." He said, Joseph Smith said, "Sidney is not as used to it as I am." And that's true. It's true. I have on my other spreadsheet called quotes A through Z. I have a topic called visions, loss of energy, and strength. This is something that happens, like when you're in the presence of God, or I guess when you have like a powerful vision. So the first instance that I know of, like in chronological order, is from Moses chapter 1, verses 9 through 10. "And the presence of God withdrew from Moses, that his glory was not upon Moses, and Moses was left unto himself. And he was left unto himself, as he was left unto himself, he fell to the earth. And it came to pass that it was for the space of many hours before Moses did again receive his natural strength, like unto a man. And he said unto himself, Now, for this cause I know that man is nothing, which thing I never had supposed." Okay, so Moses experiences this like weakness or loss of energy from this type of experience. And then we look at, let's look at Joseph Smith history, verse 20. "He again forbade me to join any of them, and many other things did he say unto me, which I cannot write at this time. When I came to myself again, I found myself," so this is the first vision. "When I came to myself again, I found myself lying on my back, looking up into heaven. When the light had departed, I had no strength, but soon recovering in some degree, I went home. And as I leaned up to the fireplace, Mother inquired what the matter was. I replied, Never mind, all is well. I am well enough off. And then said to my mother, I have learned for myself that Presbyterianism is not true. It seems as though the adversary was aware, at a very early period of my life that I was destined to prove a disturber and an annoyer of his kingdom. Else why should the powers of darkness combine against me? Why the opposition and persecution that arose against me almost in my infancy? And then later on in Joseph Smith history, verses 47 and 48, this is after the angel Moroni visited him in his room. After this third visit, he again ascended into heaven as before, and as I was again left to ponder on the strangeness of what I had just experienced, when almost immediately after the heavenly messenger had ascended from me for the third time, the cock crowed, and I found that day was approaching, so that our interviews must have occupied the whole of that night. I shortly after arose from my bed, and as usual went to the necessary labors of the day, but in attempting to work as at other times, I found my strength so exhausted as to render me entirely unable. My father, who was laboring along with me, discovered something to be wrong with me and told me to go home. I started with the intention of going to the house, but in attempting to cross the fence out of the field where we were, my strength entirely failed me, and I fell helpless on the ground and for a time was quite unconscious of anything. So, okay. And then here we are. This is the first general conference. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just like these first two paragraphs. On the first day of June, 1830, we health. Okay, that's like a typo. I need to double check that. We held. That's what it is. When you copy and paste from archive.org or some places, it's like it'll do like a recognition of the characters on the original document, and it does a pretty good job, but sometimes it messes up the letters. Okay, so on the first day of June, 1830, we held our first conference as an organized church. Our numbers were about 30, besides whom many assembled with us, who were either believers or anxious to learn. Having opened by singing and prayer, we partook together of the emblems of the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. We then proceeded to confirm several who had lately been baptized, after which we called out and ordained several of the various offices of the priesthood. Much exhortation and instruction was given, and the Holy Ghost was poured out upon us in a miraculous manner. Many of our number prophesied, while others, I should highlight that, starting with miraculous manner. Many of our number prophesied, whilst others had the heavens open to their view, and were so overcome that we had to lay them on beds or other convenient places among the rest, while Brother Newell Knight, who had to be placed on a bed being unable to help himself, by his own account of the transaction, he could not understand why we should lay him on the bed, as he felt no sensibility of weakness. And then he goes on to say that, eventually their bodily strength was restored. But here you have people, aside from Joseph Smith, having visions in the first general conference of the church, and then their energy being drained. You can find this in the Millennial Star, December 1843, page 118, in an article called History of Joseph Smith. Okay, and I think, yeah, that's the last one. And now I have my newest account from Philo Dibble, and it had to do with Sidney Rigdon. It was just like his first time, but Joseph Smith was used to it, so he was he's like gotten used to it, like you said. Oh my gosh. So, okay, well, there you go. We already knew about these stories. We had different accounts, but now we have a couple new accounts for each of them. Learned something new. I had no idea that there were other people present at that vision of Doctrine and Covenants 76. That's news to me. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.